Welcome to Level Up TV. This is part 2 of our video on Dreadful Place. Just a reminder, if you haven't already, follow us on Twitter at Level Up TV, Facebook /Level Up TV, like us there, and subscribe on YouTube /Level Up TV. Come and chat in our IRC on QuakeNet as well, #Level Up TV. Still with me, Disrepute and Vor. Of course. Who else? Dreadful Place Exposed. This is going to be the second VOD in that series, and so we're on to the quad area, Vor.
Yeah, we are, and as you can see, stood just on the pickup point. There's 3 ways into this quad room. First is this high route in, which, as you all know by now, is from this grenade launcher and mega area. This shotgun route in, red armor room in there, and this bounce pad, which is the obviously riskier the routes in, but you can almost bounce straight onto it. As if they'd ever let you, but you almost can.
Well, I've seen it. Stranger things happen. So the 3 entrances in, and you've got 4 players, which should mean you should be able to cover them pretty effectively. And each of them, once one team's locked in position, they should be able to defend them really effectively.
Yeah, let's just first talk about that on this map, contrast to a lot of other currently played maps, is often a map where you'll look to set quad up extremely early, looking to get an advantage. And obviously, you have to decide where you draw the line. I mean, you could come here potentially 40 seconds early, but you've got to think what you're giving up. You're giving up potentially a red armor if you bring your whole team here. Maybe you will leave one person to get a red. But you're losing out on lightning gun, potentially rail, yellow armors, megas. So you have to think about, much as you want to get here early to get in position, you have to kind of read the game. Now, maybe your opponent's been trying to do the same thing, and in which case, do you try and get there even earlier than them, or do you let them have the initial position? So there is a lot to think about with what time you choose to set quad up on this map. Not an easy decision necessarily.
There's no necessarily right or wrong answer. We can't tell you to go, 2 minutes early, although obviously that'd be a previous quad.
Because you'd be playing a quad all game.
Yeah, but we can't say turn up 10 seconds late. In some maps, it might work that you turn up 5 seconds before and actually get quad. Unlikely on this, but we can't guarantee there's a right or wrong. But generally, a lot of teams are sending maybe 40 seconds before the first player. And usually you say you're holding the red position, a couple of reds, like the penultimate red to quad, so the one red before the last red, that guy who takes that, often he'll go up to quad with that, so you've already got an armor player there and he's protecting the armor rather than risking it a position at the LG or the rail. So you've definitely got some armor at the power up, so that's one sort of solution at least. But 30-40 seconds before is the sort of general rule of thumb on this map, at least currently, you'd say.
Yeah, and that's always subject to change, as the game evolves.
But why would you send someone that early up here, Vor? I mean, sending one person, surely they can't do much against the team.
The reason for the early setup on this map is such a strong position. I think that this bounce pad here, very easy shot once you're up this bounce pad. Caught in the air, pushed against things. You can only hope to be pushed behind a pillar and maybe survive a few seconds longer than you otherwise would. Very tight doorway in here. Can easily be locked down by someone as far out as this. People in here. This is not an easy position on the map to get into if there's a settled team, so it can become a game of one-upmanship. Kind of butchered that or whatever. But you can be looking to outdo your opponent by getting here so early that
it's a gamble.
Out by it. Yeah, it's a gamble, but it can catch the other team out, and they could potentially throw away a lot of frags.
You're going to do a lot of damage anybody coming in these 2 side doorways, or it's like any map. The bounce pad, firstly, is a vulnerable thing to go up. You're hanging in the air. Even if you do clip at the top, you're still vulnerable coming up. They get an audio warning that you're coming up the bounce pad. And then you're hanging in the air. You're going to be caught, probably, and you might even be pushed straight back down there. So it's always a vulnerable position to be in going up a bounce pad. On top of that, as Vor pointed out, I mean, the two doorways, they're like airlocks. They've got two entrances at each bit and really tight area in between. So it's not the easiest to get through with a mass number of players, and you're going to take damage no matter what if you've got a good setup. So that's probably why it's such a strong position and why you would want to get there first and lock it down. You need the right weapons, but then you need the right setup once the rest of your team arrives.
Yeah, and if we're looking at setup, you know, in the ideal world, you keep area completely locked down by starting at the furthest point that's safe to defend from. Now, even though there is a spawner in here, you can get on this doorway with rocket launcher or shotgun, then anyone coming round this doorway is in serious trouble. You know, they're going to probably have to back off, or they're going to have to just try and force their way through and take so much damage. And once you've backed off from the doorway initially, again you've got staircase, there's no other way up. Back off again, force them to come round. So it's just so hard to get in, but it's only hard if you're starting from the furthest point out. I mean, if you start from here and you miss your shots on the stairs, all of a sudden you're already pushed back into the quad room.
I mean, that doorway, though, isn't quite as critical as the other, because
No.
you have got that raised position where, if you're saying if you do stand back that far, you still got a massive advantage if you've got a rocket launcher there blocking them off.
Yeah.
But this upper doorway is even more important.
Yeah, it's the same. You mean, again, you want to start with defense from here. I mean, depending on weapons you have, if you've got a rail, opportunities to fire in the distance, maybe they overwhelm you, but back off. Use each corner. I mean, if 3 players were coming in this way, 1 player rocket launcher could either take them all out, force some to back off, or at least do heavy damage to all of them. But, you know, this position is devastating, but you have to start here. You can't expect to start this position here, see people coming around the corner, and then try and push them back. You know, you have to be in the position initially.
Yeah, and it's like Vor said, I mean, the further you can push them away from even getting into the area, then the better it's going to be in terms of the likelihood of you getting the power-up. So pushing out to that grenade launcher, railing across the map, you're blocking them off getting up a bounce pad, up the staircase to even get up to challenge that point, and you're forcing them to take a route up the main bounce pad, which is the easiest point to get the frags in.
Yeah, the only thing you have to worry about on this bounce pad, depending on what gun you're using, say you're using a lightning gun and the player is standing, you can end up pushing people onto this back wall, where they might start to use the pillars to actually be harder to hit. And you never know what could come from behind when they're dodging here. They might have a rocket spamming it onto the quad and you can't just finish them off, and it ends up doing damage to the pickup or killing it. You know, nades are the same problem. Hard for people to deal with. Can be. What you don't want to do, that's why we're mentioning this bounce pad, don't really want to defend it from here, depending on what gun you have especially, because depending how late the attack is, all you might achieve is, you know, LGing someone on this bounce pad. You could push them straight into that quad. So, you know, never shoot from behind it, because you're just pushing them where they want to go.
And that's the same with every weapon. I mean, if you hit perfect plasma stream, you're still going to send them flying towards the quad. If you hit a rocket, it's going to send them in that direction. And that's the danger point. That's the point you're trying to push them away from. So just always remember...
Shoot from the sides, so you're pushing them away from the quad. Front, so you're pushing them behind it. And even though they can be hard to deal with once they're behind these pillars, it's a lot better than just pushing them straight onto the quad. You know, if there is a stat guy, I mean, maybe your team got here early. Maybe one of their teams managed to get 200 health and over 100 armor. You could just push him straight onto here and he'd still be potentially healthy enough to kill you.
Grab the quad and clean up, and then you're in serious trouble. So yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to... You want to give yourself the best chance. You don't want to give them a helping hand and just hope that they aren't going to land on the quad and hope they aren't stacked and play the percentages game. It's more likely than not that you're going to get the quad if you push them away from it rather than towards it. I mean, it's pretty logical, obvious thing, but you do see teams doing that. I mean, it is a good position to play in terms of standing behind the bounce pad because they're not going to be looking that direction. So that's why the logic of standing behind the bounce pad adds up, but at the same time you just don't want to push them towards your quad. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of like blocking off the doorways. Now remember, you can always spam grenades, you've always got the rocket launcher, etc. If you want to push out as far as you can, you're more controlling the direction they can attack the quad from, and your ideal goal would actually be for them to come up the bounce pad because they should be then an easy kill. But the biggest threat is definitely from that upper doorway. And a lot of the time they will spam grenades in here, and this is sort of ties in with the way you should perhaps attack this area. You've got a grenade launcher just outside this doorway right here, and of course it's set up perfectly for grenade spam that do reach the quad, so it's a danger point. It's got a good line of sight onto the quad as well.
Yeah, and quite often what happens is if they do get into this position, nades can actually cut off one whole side of the room. If you've got nades landing in here and there's no one on this side, then all of a sudden it becomes very difficult for anyone on this side of the room to actually safely get over to here to deal with the threat. So, you know, the early positions, if you can take them up, they're very hard to break, but you know, if you don't utilize those positions and just position yourself, your whole team in areas like this, then all of a sudden it's actually a very easy room to get into, and you're not making use of the layout at all to help you defend.
I think what you need to bear in mind in this this quad area on this map is, unlike other maps, you're not necessarily playing for a big quad run. What you're playing for is the frags and maybe just damage, just high level of damage on the setup of the power up itself. Just the way this map works, it's not really ideal for quad runs to get a massive amount of frags, so most of the frags you're going to gather and the big turnaround in frags throughout the map you're going to get on the quad setup, which means you can't be of the viewpoint that we'll just get our players and we'll sort of hide and wait for the quad and just hope they don't rush through the doors and stuff. That's why you need to get in their face, you need to be dealing that damage and taking advantage of the geometry of the area.
Because it doesn't matter how good a player is, how much health and armor he has, if you're on this corner, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be very difficult to get past. As you back off, it's the same thing again, they have to come around this corner. Chances of them getting in without taking a lot of damage are pretty much zero.
Going over to the shotgun side, now we talked about the grenade point, and there is a line of sight onto the quad. There is a line of sight onto the quad from this position as well, just up this staircase, firstly this position here. So that is a danger to be wary of, which is why...
you have to be aware of either railgun or plasma spam from here.
Yeah, I mean, plasma can be very effective because it's just a straight line shot, and I mean, if quad's up and you just walk straight onto the quad while that stream of plasma's hitting it, you go down very easily. Of course, if they just go up that staircase a little bit further, they can be railing into the room. Generally, they don't have a line of sight onto the quad, but you know, most of your players are going to cross that area anyway. So that's why you don't want to let them into this area either. You want to pin them in that first doorway coming through. And generally, you would treat this shotgun room as the area where you're not getting the frags, you're just stopping them coming this route. So you secure this route, it's blocked off. That means you've only got two routes in that you've got to focus on. The upper, which is the dangerous one, and the bounce pad, which is the one where you're going to get loads of frags off. Now, obviously, if they tried to come in this doorway, they aren't going to have time to go all the way around to the top route. They're going to have to go the bounce pad route if they make an attack on it. So you've got to think about the flows of the players and the movements around the map they're going to make, where they have to go to get where they want. So they want to get to quad. If you block them off in this doorway, the shotgun doorway, so there's like some guy trying to run through, Vor just spams a rocket, he goes, oh shit, I've got to get to quad. This is the only option he has, realistically speaking, of getting there in time now.
Yeah.
And so once you've blocked off this doorway, successful defense. You don't even really need to spend too much time in this room often, unless they really push it or they push it early.
Yeah, I mean, they have to make a choice. So they either brute force their way through here. In most cases, you should be in this significantly more advantaged position and take them out, or you've done so much damage that they're not really a threat to anyone if they actually get to this doorway.
And I mean, and this
or they're going to back off.
At this point, especially as well, if you're defending this doorway, you can get a sense of where it's too late for one of them to even come through this doorway, and you can back off and then support the bounce pad defense just
Yeah,
inside this room.
you might be focused on this doorway initially, either down here or up where I was by this machine gun ammo. And then if you feel you've dealt with the threat and there's no sign of them trying to push through, you're immediately here to be able to support. Comes up this bounce pad.
And you'd still stay this side. You still stay this side to cover this door in case somebody does spawn here. There's a spawn right here next to Vor.
Yeah, and there's no need to crowd this area. I mean, it's terrible if your whole team is all stood here in a clump.
You might also have the option of, we talked about this on Grim Dungeons, having specific people set roles in these kind of setups just to simplify it and make it a smoother transition between getting into the area and then getting controlled positions. That's an option. You shouldn't necessarily need to do that, but let's say I might put Vor. I say, Vor, you're always in charge of making sure the shotgun is secure. And then I might say, you know, another player is in charge of the top corridor, and another player is in charge of watching the bounce pad, and then our other player is in charge of stacking up and making sure he's ready for quad, and he's going to stay in and around that area by quad, but he's also going to be covering the bounce pad and sort of a second defense on any of the doorways.
Yeah, you have to think about safe positions to sit if your guy's stacked. I mean, providing the two side entrances are secure, then areas like this are safe. Yeah,
you got to think about the angles they can shoot you at. So
over here, not as much, but
yeah,
maybe
over
you
here,
need the health. So
over here, you've got the risk of the shotgun position being railed from.
Yeah, if you lose the shotgun position, the position I showed you earlier that you can rail from, obviously you can be seen here, and you'll need to go
across that rail shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also you're very close to this upper doorway to be rushed on, so this is probably not the best place to stand if you're ready stacked for quad, but at least it's better than standing right in line of sight of the upper doorway as well, because you could probably the worst position is just a bit more forwards probably of quad and in line with the top doorway and that side doorway. That's probably the worst position, and if they come at the bounce pad, they're going to shoot in that position straight away. So just think about the spacing and the angles and that. So if you move to the left, if you see to the left, suddenly that top corridor is completely out of viewpoint. In fact, no one can even shoot us from the left. So suddenly we've got to an angle where the danger point is the bounce pad, really, and that's not even a great danger point anyway, because the angle people would be looking would probably be directly onto the quad, so they'd have to look to the right more. So this is probably the safest position, but at the same time, you don't want to be caught doing nothing in a corner. At the end of the day, we talked about this already, the objective, although it is to get the power up, you're going to get more frags on this map probably by the setup of the power up. So you can't be, you know, shying away, hiding, because if your teammates get overrun and lose it, you're not going to get quad anyway. Firstly, from this position, you're going to get caught in this corner. You're probably going to get killed trying to protect your armor. But at the same time, even if you do secure the quad, but all your teammates die and you get the quad, you might not even get any frags off it. So you want to go for the almost guaranteed frags if you can by clearing out the bounce pad, etc. So I mean, I think in terms of defensive positions, I just want to emphasize as well, the absolute most dangerous point is that top corridor, and we see it time and time again in our streams
when nobody is here waiting to defend it.
And let's remember, if we look at it logically, the mega side has this is the one entrance they have. Realistically speaking, the advantage on their bounce pad and the other shotgun entrance goes to the red side of the map. That's closer to them, that's in a more secure position for them. So more than likely, the mega side of the map is going to come through this top corridor, and often with multiple players. So you need to think about it. So say for example you haven't set it up early, you haven't done what we've advised to do, Vor, where he is now, you haven't even got there. You're in the quad, and you see people coming there, right? You know quad's up in, I don't know, 5 seconds, let's say. You're Vor, you've got a rocket launcher. What do? Do you just sit back and just try and ping them off as they dive in through the doorway? No, you have to get in their faces. You have to block them off coming in so your quad guy can pick up a clean quad. You have to get right in their faces, even if it's just this front doorway. Just bam, straight as much as you can. Block them off. Block off any speed, any spam of grenades, and obviously put a lot of damage out on them. that's a kind of sacrificial role that often we don't see players take. They kind of want to go, oh look, I've got 100 health and a shotgun, I'd rather protect that. I'll just stand like here and try and hit a shot. Now you might hit one really great shot here, but if three of them dive through this hallway,
for sure to do a lot of damage from here. But the only problem here is you started here, and what's most likely happening while you're here is there's a stream of grenades coming in the whole time, and you've got to get around the corner and try and stop that. But it's not so easy when you're starting from here, whereas you were here initially, they might not have ever even got in to start spamming those grenades.
Exactly, it's about thinking a few steps ahead, TDM. It's always about positioning and the timing of those positions. I mean, you're going to set up quad, you want to get there early so you can get these stronger positions. And your whole process of thought, I mean, as we talked about a little bit earlier, we might say a typical quad out setup is 40 seconds, but if you got into that grenade launcher 50 seconds before, you'd even be in a better position to deal out damage to the opposition to stop them even having a good attack on quad.
Obviously earlier in the guide that this is a strong position. If you can get a railer here with red, he might be looking to do damage on the last mega before quad or whatever. Then he can be that guy who just blocks off this route.
And all you're doing there is they know they can't get through this entrance, right? So what are they going to be able to do? Are they going to be able to run all the way round to this shotgun doorway? Well, potentially, but probably not. They're probably all going to have to attack this bounce pad route, and that's the easy kills. You're just setting yourself up for easy kills. You're controlling the flow of the players around the map. So you've got to think that in terms of where you block off areas, where you're doing your damage. And also, as we talked about earlier, the item placement of things. So if you do damage to people, you know they're probably going to run for some health, so you know which route they're going to take. And that's something that maybe isn't as evident in the thought processes as we're watching streams of players, but really all the best players are thinking along those terms, even if it's just subconsciously, about why people take certain routes and what's the most likely plan of attack. So okay, so we've locked down a really good quad position. Before we go on a quad run, let's say from the other point of view, they've locked down a good quad position and we're attacking it for. What are the options we're going to look at as the aggressive?
It's obviously the reverse, isn't it? This is, if you're say coming from Mega, this is going to be one of your primary, if not the absolute primary route in. You're going to look to try and see if this route is safe to come in. You can expect there to be people on these corners, so you're going to be cautious initially. There
might be a railer sitting back at quad as well. There is often
so it depends on how far you get, but this is a point that you're going to want to work into, even if it's just to spam or if it's actually to get in the room itself, is one of the interests you want. Obviously, if you are caught in this corner, you have to decide, can you fight and win? I mean, there could be two people around here. It could just be one. You have to think about whether or not you can win that fight and still be effective at the quad. Otherwise, it's decision time. Do you go for a different route in? So, think. But if you can get in, you can either sit back and look to rail it, nades on it, or you can work your way in further. Depends what the other team's doing, of course.
Of course, there's the three routes of attack, and ideally in any attack of any area you want to spread their view as wide as possible. They have to cover as many angles as possible. So if you can utilise all 3 points on the attack, that's going to work out better than just running through one doorway.
Of course, depending on how early the other teams decided to set quad up, there may be an opportunity to get one of the reds on your way to attacking. Some teams set quad up, but they leave people to get the last red. Quite often you'll see the last red be taken, and ideally he ends up being the quad runner. So you have an opportunity to come and attack the last red. You might pick up a kill.
Might get a free red.
Might get a free red as well, which will help a lot with your attack. But this is, if you choose to come through red, this is obviously another key route in. You have to be careful. The ambushes on the corners. But then you've got choices. You can either sit back, rail it, spam it with plasma, try and rail the room, or try and get in the room with rockets, but again, tight doorway, potentially people around there ambushing, around here. I think if you're choosing to come in this way and you've got backup, then you really do need to be kind of aggressive. You can't, as said on other maps, you can't sit here while there's a teammate behind you supporting you, because he can't do anything from behind. You know, even if it's a guy with a rail, if you're sat here trying to work your way in slowly, there is nothing the guy behind you can do without risking hitting you. So you need to be aggressively into the room, looking to clear it out.
That doorway is a great example of moving through the doorway and left or right, and suddenly you're putting yourself in a really unusual position to the angles they're going to be aiming at. So you've got a big advantage if you come from this angle and get through that doorway to the left or the right. You're really spreading their fire away from the other danger zones for your team.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you'd come in here with some armour. If you're leading the way in from this direction, you need some armour, you need some weaponry. I think we saw a game where Wins did that brilliantly. He had teammates coming in behind him as well, but he'd taken a red, he had weaponry, and he was aggressive into the room. He wasn't just hanging around in this doorway trying to pick a shot and then head in. You know, he made use of his armour advantage, and you know, I actually think he died or lost all of his armour, but the result was, from his aggressive play, not just sitting back,
tottering around, defending his armour, no.
Yeah, they won the quad by him using his red to the advantage.
Yeah, I mean, you've got kind of an option with the armours. You can try and save the armoured players for the power-up run, or you can use the armoured players to win over the power-up. And let's think about this carefully. If you don't use the armour players to try and win the power-up, you might not win it at all. So
Exactly.
Sometimes you have to think, alright, ideally we'd like an armoured quad, but a quad is better than no quad. And so the armoured players using that to the fullest to make sure they secure and win the area is probably the priority here, not to hide the armor players away. Who, remember, they're the ones that got the advantage in the fights over your other players, so it doesn't really make any sense. Because as soon as you might get a quad then, even though he's not an armoured player, he can then look for armour, but of course he's already got an inbuilt advantage with the extra 3 times damage, so...
You have to think about it, but the armoured player, let's say the players without armour go in first, they're pretty much instant kills. They might even die in the doorway. Guy of armour will survive the initial hits and get in to do damage and allow his teammates to come in behind while he's tanking all that damage that's being dealt out. Whereas his teammates go in first and all die, what's he doing? He's going to come in with his armour on his own, potentially.
Effectively, he's the start of the next rung of players, so he's going to take all that early entry damage anyway.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, what we've established from this is on this map you have to get there early and lock it down. You have to get those positions, because we've just pointed out, if you're coming up against a team that's locked it down already, it's going to be very hard to get in either of those doorways. And now looking at the bounce pad as well, I mean, what are the options on the bounce pad? You could sort of bounce up at an angle and go either left, right or backwards or forwards, I guess, but you're still going to be hanging in the air. You probably do want to try and clip it, but
yeah, it's very dangerous route in. I mean, if you've got people coming from all angles, then a well-timed bounce pad attack can work out. But you know, you have to think, if say you've been forced into all going up this bounce pad, you really are in trouble, because the first person up is always going to get obliterated. People come up immediately behind him without hesitation, then they might survive initially, but they're probably going to take damage as well.
yeah, I mean, there is the option. Say you went in as a 4-man attack up the bounce pad, but you really need to do it together, and you need to be going in different directions, so it has to be coordinated perfectly. So I think you can go left or right on this bounce pad, or hit the back. So if you went all 4 directions with players, that would be a perfect sort of bounce pad attack. But it's still very risky. I mean, you're all within a very close proximity to each other, and you're all just one line of sight of all their team. And you are all going to hang in the air at some point, so it's still a vulnerable way to attack it.
I don't think we often see successful attacks where teams come up the bounce pad and win the area against a team that has good positioning. I mean, you'll see the teams who've got bad positioning when defending quad, because you know, people will come up the bounce pad and kill people in here, and they were all within this area. But you know, against organised teams with good quad setups, you rarely see these last moment bounce pad attacks actually doing anything.
Bounce pad's got its best option if there's attacks coming from, and the focus of the fire and the fighting is on the two side doorways, because it takes away the viewpoint on that bounce pad. That's going to give your bounce pad attacker the best option. It might be even that both doorways being attacked, so they've got 2 and 2 split, and the bounce pad's not even covered. That's your hope. Before you also go into the room, I mean, probably the best option you've got is definitely send someone that shotgun side to get entry damage, early entry, pre-entry damage, sorry, using the railgun, say, at distance through that gap. That's probably ideally what you want to be able to do.
Yeah, so against a good setup, though, you're going to have to, if you are adamant that you're going to get into the quad, you're going to have to probably brute force one of the sides. Because, as strong as those positions are and as much damage you are likely to take if the player is positioning themselves perfectly, you can still brute force your way in.
Yeah. Because they are actually, in defence, they are going to have to be spread out. I mean, if we said, if they're pushed right to that front doorway, you're only going to send one player right to each of those doorways as far out. If you brute force it in...
You can get at scouting. I mean, maybe you are here, and you can either hear or see there's 2 or 3 people in the red room. Now, you can make that call that it's likely to be this route that they're coming in, or main bounce pad. And it is the same this side as well. If you are pushed out to here, you can call, free incoming, high or whatever, and all of a sudden the defence might shift positions slightly. But it's still, if you don't make those reactions, you don't defend these positions well, or if you're not even in those positions at all, you are vulnerable to being brute forced from any of those 2 sides.
I mean, brute force is a kind of last-ditch effort as well, I have to say, because you're going to take a lot of damage, and you're probably going to lose maybe half the people that are trying to go that route, maybe more. But it can work to at least get in on a room. So ideally, when you're attacking any position, you want to try and get clean pre-entry damage, rail positions if you can. There's an option of going really aggressive and doing the just brute force attack, all rushing through. That you have to be really aggressive if you do that, and you have to just get in and get out the way of your teammates, right in at the same time, rushing, firing away.
When you're fighting, maybe there is someone positioned here which we'd call a good position, but you can still win that fight. I mean, it's all about you hit that perfect first rocket, pop them up and knock them against the wall or something. You might get in here, and then you can make the call to your team that you're in on the side, and all of a sudden you might have a good chance of actually winning this quad over. I mean, it's not set in stone that the defender is here in a good position and nobody can kill him. Can still get in here. It's going to be different throughout the whole map. You might get in this way like 3 times out of 8 the whole game, but might have still worked.
Yeah, you're playing the percentages really though, and ideally we want an early setup, and I would just advise that's pretty much the only strat you should have, is that you want to set up earlier than your opposition, or at least set up the same time as them, so it's a contestable position. If you leave it late and they're set up, you're going to be in serious trouble, because you're going to take a lot of damage even if you do get in there eventually. So I mean, well, I guess the last point of that is, you don't have to go to the quad.
Exactly, you can make the decision early, but you're not going to contest quad, and then that leaves, depending on the positioning of the team maybe they've gone to quad early, they might then give up multiple red armors, multiple lightning guns, rail guns, yellow armors, megas, and all of a sudden you might be going up against a quad that's got stack itself, but you're all in various positions around the map looking to counter it. We should start looking at those positions maybe.
What you've got to remember is, of course, what applies to one side of the map probably applies to the other as well, in that the quad is a very hard position to attack when defended from the quad side. It also translates to the same effect on the other side, so the place Vor's standing now is equally as difficult to get through as if this going the other way from quad through to here as it is going from the grenade launcher through to the quad zone. So you've got to remember that in terms of your defensive position. Now obviously you don't want a quad to be coming up against a quad, because he might take one shot and kill you rather than the normal 2 or 3 shots a normal player might have. But at the end of the day, it's still a very tight area. You're going to do a lot of damage to quad if you're sitting in a good position here with the right weaponry. And
Yeah, I guess we should just... Maybe we went past it too quick, but, you know, the reason you might not want to go to quad is you've got to think about how good the enemy team is at defending it, how good their positioning is when you're preparing to attack, and some games you might realise after the second or third power-up that, look, this team, they've got really solid setup, we're not there early enough to catch them out. You know, we really need to think about not attacking this because we can't afford to give away potentially 4 minimum, but, you know, 6 or 7 frags we often see picked up on the defensive quad.
yeah, I mean, you have to... Sometimes teams don't think outside the box. They think quad's up, we must go for quad. They might remember quad 50 seconds early and get a good setup on it. They might remember it 10 seconds before it's up, and they still think, we got to rush for it, we got to get it. Whereas if you take a calm viewpoint of it, you can also see that if they're going to get quad, and we know this map, we've already established, as we said, this map's not massive frag counts on quad runs, and we've already said there's a lot of ambush points and areas you can catch quad, and we've also said that the quad area is very difficult to get in through a defence, so we can also translate that round to it's difficult to get out of. Then there's an equal case, you should think, for ambushing, not going to quad, and maybe ambushing it on the way out, or just evading it.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at quad is looking to come out this way, maybe because they know the time of mega health, which is very standard.
Well, just wait a second. You got to remember as well that quad is going to be drawn in by the items on its route of choice. So again, thinking about what direction someone might take. So as Vor says, mega's a very tempting item to be running towards. So this is often a common route, as well as having the 50 health just around the corner at this mid bit. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, so if the quad is coming out this way, bear in mind, as mentioned before, the quad glows. Now, it's probably about here.
Do you want to pick it up and then I can just free cam?
Alright, sure. So you probably can already see the glow coming around the corner. So anyone round this corner with a rocket launcher, it doesn't matter how quick I come round, the glow is going to be visible.
It's like 2 or 3
well
bodies
in
ahead,
time.
effectively.
Exactly. There is ample time to realise, okay, quad's coming this way, you communicate it to your team, and you can land a rocket right on this corner here that's going to just catch him perfectly. But of course, it would be a lot wiser if the quad was to send a teammate out first to just make sure this area is safe. But you know, I'm sure those of you who have watched our streams before have seen that quad is often very eager to get out and start doing damage, that they don't usually wait for a teammate.
In the heat of the moment, players don't think so clearly, and by doing these guides, I mean, I would hope that players would get the idea that there's a lot of tactics and a lot of small elements you can change in the game and your thought process that will improve it drastically in terms of TDM at least.
Yeah, so you know, this is a good opportunity to get damage on quad. Now maybe you don't kill it in, like, it depends what rocket you hit. If you land a rocket right there that hits him perfectly, now you've got an opportunity to hit another one because it might keep him from coming around the corner. But you know, let's say you just hit a rocket that just does some damage, then you know you've got the chance to back off this way, assuming the quad isn't unbelievably quick reactions and just pins you to that pillar or something with LG.
Of course, you might want to just grab that 50 away from him because he might be a little bit weaker then. You might
I mean, you've got options because of what's in the area, depending on the shots you hit, the weapons the quad has, because you're going to hear, does he have a lightning gun out as he's coming round?
Yeah, go on.
I mean, if he has a lightning gun in a position like this, even though you might actually die, but you know, he might get some hits on you, you'll take the 50 away from him, you might hit some rockets as he's coming round. Now you hit your first one here, now around this corner.
But I'll tell you what, if you do the damage there, you deny the 50, he might kill you. Think about this, he's in this position now, what's the first thing he's going to be thinking about? He's going to be thinking about the 225s. If Mega's not up, the 225s drop off that, or the 50. So you already know his path is going to be that route across the map. I mean, all of the health in this area, he's going to be this side of the map for another 5, 6, 7 seconds, even longer maybe.
Yeah, so if you've hit shots and he hasn't backed off back through quad that way, and you say you've dropped down, then, you know, is the quad going to drop down into this tight space again to go for you, or is he going to go and look for the health? I mean, got options. You mean you might just choose to back off entirely, depending on the situation in the game. Maybe it's a close game and you can't risk it, but maybe you've got an opportunity to fire onto the health or get some angles to put nades or rockets onto the mega health that he's looking to pick up.
Yeah, so the quad coming out of here, actually if you just go to that exit as well, bearing in mind what are the things drawing him out of this doorway, he probably has taken damage already, so he wants that 50. So if you're going to ambush around a corner, you could stand where the 50 is, or you could stand the other side by the bounce pad kind of, which is a very unusual angle for people to stand, because it's a sort of nowhere element. No one's ever going to stand there in the match normally, so you can actually catch out the quad, come around the corner, he's probably going to check right first, and then you could just ping him up against that back wall. He might actually land on the 50, although you might have already farmed that up. So, but thinking that's another thing to think about, is what are his objectives and his micro objectives, I've called it, which would be getting the health there. And so what's that going to affect in his decision making, the angles he's going to look at, etc., and how you can counter that then.
Yeah, and depending on how you want to play it, if you've assuming you've been farming items while the other teams had quads set up and they haven't realised that there's going to be no attack, so they haven't pushed out, start getting items themselves. I mean, you might have a railer back here and someone on that corner where I was earlier ready to ambush with rockets, and then someone back here with a rail. All of a sudden the quad could immediately be taken out by the combination of the two.
And that great position there, what we talked about on this map, is the range you get across this map. It's almost the entire width of the map, or length of the map here.
Yeah, the only way quad can kill you in this position is if he has a rail himself and he hits the shot.
Yeah, and remember, he's the one. He's the one coming in blinded around the corner. Effectively, you're waiting for him. You will see a glow even from this distance, just a slight glow, come round, so you'll get the advanced warning, and you've got a better angle on the shot immediately because you're already set for it. So, in fact, I've seen teams spend maybe, I mean, this is really rare, but I've seen teams have two players here with rail, and if they both hit, and they're just sitting back, the quad can't do anything to them. If, say, there was nobody up there, there's just the railers here. As he comes through that doorway, two railers hit him, he's as good as dead generally anyway, because it's unlikely the quad's going to be massively stacked. Even if you didn't challenge it particularly, he's going to be seriously wounded. So this,
and that's probably about it for that side if the quad's leaving by that route.
Yeah, if we go to the other side, the shotgun doorway, that is the other big pull route, and the reason why is because it takes you round to red, and the 50 health, the micro objective on the way there, because they might want a bit of health or whatever. So the two side doorways, despite them being actually technically the riskier exits, they have more natural draw towards them, and so the quad's more likely to go those routes. Whether, ironically, it's switched around with the bounce pad, there's less risk in dropping down the bounce pad than there is going up it, and so it's probably the slightly safer route, although you can still be ambushed there. But if we talk about this area first.
I mean, I've seen players hit rail on quad as it comes through his doorway. I mean, it's a very difficult shot, but it's one to look for if you've got the gun. But then even if you don't have a rail, again, you can just spam the doorway and hope to get lucky.
And you get an early warning of the route it's taken, of course. You've got to be quick to back off there, but there is also ambush points either side of the door.
Yeah, the key point about being at this door is, what we'll come to in a moment, is the quad does choose to drop down the bounce pad. You're close to the door, you have a chance to see it in the distance, maybe hit a shot and then back off this way. And then the quad has to waste time thinking, do I go looking for that player, do I go back up to quad, or do I continue with my run? Because we've seen so many times where quad has wasted its time looking for one kill on someone who is elusive at a decent distance, and the quad just thinks, I've got to kill that player. And it's actually a waste of a quad when that happens.
Yeah. So it's like this position around this pillar as well. That's a good example of somebody who generally wastes quad's time.
Yeah, same thing where you see quad is here trying to get an angle on him, then he goes to drop here, and then all of a sudden he's round the other side of the pillar, and he can just keep dodging around it. And even if you can just waste 6 or 7 seconds in that position against quad, now you've done an awesome job, because wasted so much time just for one kill.
There's an ambush point right here for a good shot as well. I mean, well, there's loads here just around the corners.
Yeah, there's all sorts you can do.
But one really good one there is if you can manage to sneak up. Remember, they've got it locked down on this base. If you sneak up the stairs and round to the right-hand side here, as we look at it, the doorway. Now, there's a spawn here, and it's obviously a big gap, and you'd think people expect an ambush here, but they really don't. And it's also one you don't just splash a rocket around the corner slightly and it will catch them, because it's got a bit of depth to this area. So generally, quad will just come rushing down. They'll probably look to drop on the 50 maybe, or the shards, and just straight through to red. That'll be sort of their objective. They don't want to look to the left there, so that's quite a good ambush point there. Just for one shot, you could even knock the quad off and then run through the quad area and escape.
Yeah, and the thing to remember is, from the point of view of you've got the quad, all of these ambushes are instantly countered by just sending a teammate ahead of you, whichever way you choose to exit. Want to come this way? Just send a teammate ahead of you. Make him go into the red room, so there's no one in here, and then you're safe to join them.
One of the most common spots actually for ambushing is just through that doorway, to the left and the right. Just somebody with a rocket here, or
plasma even at this close range. You have to have degree of luck or obscenely good plasma aim, but you know, we've seen quads killed in this position by plasma many times.
So I guess that leaves the last position in and out of quad, which should be the bounce pad. Now, as I said, it's such a dangerous route going up. It's the most dangerous out of the three, but at the same time it's probably the safest out of the three to drop off. Now obviously you're dropping off into a blind zone, but you're dropping off through a larger opening at an angle that they can't really predict, and a speed they can't really guess.
Yeah, because you've got options down that way, or just straight down. It's not immediately obvious, and once you're straight down here, then you've got a shotgun, which is very common, or a lightning gun, and these are quite nice areas to have a quad and be in close combat.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a threat you can get combated as you drop down by a rocket launch player or something, but it's just not as likely because, secondly, you've got to think, look at the viewpoint you've got covering down here, just looking down. So do they want to send somebody to stand there and try and get a quad as he drops down? It's not generally the risk you've seen. So if you've got a quad...
You'll often see people railing from down here at quad time, but not looking to get a quad on the exit, because it'd be a case of one rail dead, or one rocket, maybe a follow-up rocket, and then dead.
And I mean, if that quad has got a little bit of armour, at least he's going to survive your one rail you hit. He'll be right on top of you with whatever weapon he's got. You're going to be killed. So also, this route doesn't make sense in terms of the major objectives either, because it's not the nearest route to the Mega. It's not the nearest to the red.
And
so
it's a disadvantaged route to both. You'd have to say, much as you could hit shots coming through this doorway, you are vulnerable to being hit from above, or someone waiting for the red, someone at the back, either side. So it's not the ideal route for quad to drop down and then look to get red, and it's the same with the Mega.
Yeah,
This isn't the greatest route to come to Mega either, because of the same problems. Railer in the distance, ambushing spam from above.
And as a result, ironically, that makes it potentially the best place to drop down with quad, because it's the least obvious route or advantage route, so they're less likely to be setting up and defending it. Now, if you're trying to combat a quad dropping down, combat a quad leaving, I would actually say don't even bother trying to defend this position or set someone up to combat them here, because the quad's most likely gonna win and get you. But also, as we said, the quad getting out of the quad area, it's probably the best route. But as Vor just pointed out, once he's in this area, he's got a lot further to go to these key items and much more dangerous routes. And as a result, the best places you are to be are the two doorways in a 2-2 split kind of thing, because if the quad drops down here and he comes through here, comes through to the red, you'll see him, and then you're in a safe position. You'll just back off to the quad or whatever. You're safe. You're evading the quad at that point.
Yeah, and quad evasion is just as good as killing the quad. I mean, if we're in a situation where you didn't attack quad, so you gave up no kills trying to get quad,
Maybe
and
you
then
got
you
a
just
lead.
yeah, you got a lead, you evade quad for 30 seconds. You know, if you've been farming the items during their quad setup and, you know, pick some up after the quad's been picked up as well, then you haven't really missed out on much if you just evade the quad for 30 seconds. You know, wait for that 30 seconds to be up, and all of a sudden you can move back to, you know, contesting the items again.
So, if, for example, a typical evade might be, as I say, a 2-2 kind of split. So, you have two over there by that doorway, ready to combat a
There's
quad if
nothing
it
you
comes
can
through
do.
the shotgun.
I can come looking for them, but
They run
they
off.
can ambush me on this corner and they'll be gone towards quad again.
Likewise, if we go to the other side, Vor, the shotgun, sorry, the grenade launcher doorway. If quad comes here and they can ambush him, and maybe they don't, they just back off. They can take the bounce pad, run away, whatever. They can drop down to rail, as you say. But say quad doesn't come from here and they're standing up here, and he's dropped off the bounce pad. Then how is the quad going to get to them from this point? He's taken the bounce pad, and then his quickest routes are through that doorway to the death pit zone, or he can go to the
where
rail.
we've seen so many people die with quad coming through this doorway.
Yeah, that's just never go there. That's it. Don't take any other advice. Don't go there. Or you can go to the rail, and you're going to get a sight on him. And then what are these two players going to do? If they get a shot away, that's good. If not, they just run through the quad and they're safe. In fact, that should be your strategy. Maybe it's the last quad of the map. You've decided to stay out, and the quad has done the intelligent thing. Remember, this is the intelligent thing, to drop down the main bounce pad because he's not going to take damage going through a doorway. Then you've done the other intelligent thing, which is split your 2-2s. You get a call of where quad is. Say quad's at red, or whatever. Then all four of your players, two on the shotgun side, two grenade launcher, can go to the quad and secure the quad position, because let's remember, quad's the strongest point in the map. Now quad's going to be probably going, oh, they're probably at yellow, so you'd run to yellow, and you're not at yellow. So by that time he's only got, 10 seconds maximum left, in which case what will he do? He might think, alright, they're at quad, rush to quad. He's only got a few seconds left as he gets to quad, and then you're in a strong defensive position. He might just rush up the bounce pad. That's an easy kill. So there's always other options to
And
just attacking the power up.
Evasion is so easy on this map. I mean, quad comes out high here. As long as you've got good communication and people positioned around the map, quad is seen at this position. Well, there's any manner of ways to evade it. I mean, if the quad is on the chase, I mean, where would you go from here? You think there's people at the yellow. You can come around this way. Unless you have a railgun and you hit every shot the moment you can make it, then it's so easy to evade. I mean, if you come around this way, they can go back round the other way. And again, you can't get around there in the time it takes for people to dodge around these walls. It would be the same if you saw someone over there. All you'd be doing is hopefully chasing them into your teammate as a quad. But there's no guarantee that your teammates are able to take them out.
So I mean, on this map it is a much more viable option to not go to the power up and to combat it and evade it than it is on, say, another map like Hidden Fortress, where the map's so small and the power up's so dominant, you really can't afford not to at least challenge it.
Exactly.
So it is a viable option. On top of that, remember, you don't have a really very strong key objective like a locked in room red armor that the quad's gonna want to win over. Of course he'll want to win over the red armor room, but by winning it over and grabbing it, he's still gonna have to move out, and it's not really then a secure room because that's not the way it's played.
And we've seen teams do this successfully. I mean, it's not that common, but it's been done successfully where it's a close game, final quad. How often have we ever seen the quad on this map get anywhere close to, say, 10 frags? I mean, good quad runs on this map. We're amazed when we see a 6 frag quad run on this map or a 5 frag quad run.
Yeah.
It's not common on this map for quads to get a lot of kills.
Yeah, so I think that actually covers the quad setup, defense, and counter. I don't think there's anything else to cover on this map now.
No,
really,
I think we're pretty much done.
Yeah. One thing I did miss out on the first VOD that I just want to mention, I just thought of it, was that although you might not be holding the red armor, you want to try and keep a time on it. And it's like any map, you always want to put pressure onto your opponent at their key item, their position. So it might be the mega on the other side of the map. And if you're not getting it, if you just do the damage, as soon as Vord picked up that red, if he'd just been railed, then there's no
Suddenly
red being
that
picked up
rail,
effectively.
yeah, that red isn't that useful all of a sudden. Knowing the times of items just allows you to do so much. I mean, whether it's from here with a lightning gun, down here with the rail, all of a sudden it doesn't matter that you're not getting the items. It's all about just contesting as many items as you can, and hopefully, obviously, if you're good enough, coming out with the item. But you've done a job at least if every time someone picks up a lightning gun they take some damage in the back. What does that mean? They can either pass the lightning gun off to a healthy teammate, or they have to go around looking for health before they can risk doing anything with it.
And let's always remember in TDM, the objective is to get frags and to
Not
not
get frags
die.
away.
Yeah. It's not to get every red or every mega. We've seen teams get every single mega on a map and lose the map. So the items themselves just give you more of an advantage in terms of the combat situations, in terms of the likelihood you're going to survive or you're just going to get a kill. So let's think from the idea that you are gaining an advantage if you get a red armor to help you get frags. It goes back to the whole quad situation again. You're not getting armor to be quiet and protected and hide away at quad in the hope that you're going to get a nice stack quad or whatever. You've got an armor there to help you secure quad, win it, get more frags than your opponents, then get another advantage on top of that, which is the quad, which obviously you would ideally want with armor, but that in itself is still an advantage, so it's more an advantage than not getting it and getting no advantage. So all these items are just about advantage, and that's also why the weapons on this map are so important, because of the positions of everything. It just highlights the importance of them. Weapons are how you get the frags.
Yeah, and don't give away your weapons. Don't get greedy. I mean, you're railing from here, say. If you've hit a few shots from here, the other team's going to be talking to each other saying, you know, railer from rail basement or whatever you want to call it. No, if you've hit a few shots here, just leave if you've taken no return damage. You know, because they're going to be thinking of a way to counter you. And, you know, if you've hit some damage on your opponents, great. But if then you die, give away your rail, maybe they
lost.
hit your team and you've just wiped out, you know, your good play by giving away that rail gun because you've been too predictable, too greedy, and you've just given away the other team a chance to do a lot of damage to your team.
Sometimes it requires understanding the long play, in that doing damage is going to get you the frags a little bit later on. It's going to give you the advantage.
You know, situations like this, you've LG'd someone, they've done no return damage to you.
You don't need to
Their
jump.
red armor's all gone. You've backed off. You've still got your lightning gun. You're still healthy. They're not. You don't have to pursue the kill at all times. Obviously, you need frags, but you know, you also need to avoid taking unnecessary damage.
You just think of the balance of the game. You've now exposed him to be weaker, and he's going to have to wait to stack up, so he's no threat to the rest of your team on the rest of the map, which means that you should have the advantage on the rest of his teammates at that period in play. So yeah, I mean, I think that sums up Dreadful Place Exposed, and yeah, thanks again, Vor, for going through with us. And let's just go to our little title screen to remind everybody to visit our website at levelupyourgame.net. It's not actually on this title page. That's really good design, isn't it? But follow us on Twitter at leveluptv. That's when we go live. It's when we put VODs up, etc. You get all the news and info there. Like us on Facebook /leveluptv. Again, I put stuff up on there. We do polls and all kinds of stuff on there. Streams going live, get marked up on there as well. So more information there, and all our VODs, they go onto YouTube. So /leveluptv for that. Please subscribe, and if you want to chat with us live, we always have our chat room open on IRC, which is on the QuakeNet servers at #leveluptv. I know it's hard to remember all these #leveluptvs and /leveluptvs, but there you go. So do all that, interact with us, and hopefully we'll be streaming a lot more Quake and maybe some other games going forwards, and just more and more, and improving the quality and doing more guides and all sorts. And we'll be doing that, but we need the support to do that, really. So please support us. So thanks again, and enjoy this VOD. I hope you have, and then the next VOD's coming up. We got a few maps to go still, so goodbye.
Looking forward to it.